Breaking news. To resurrect a grain deal in the Black Sea, Egypt has contacted Vladimir Putin. As Kenya has called Moscow's exit from the deal a stab in the back, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has told the summit that doing so is essential. At a Russia-Africa summit marked by worries about the global economic fallout of the Kremlin's invasion of Ukraine, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi urged Russian President Vladimir Putin to return to the Black Sea grain deal. At a meeting of African leaders, including Russia's president, al-Sisi deemed it essential to reach agreement, to reinstate the agreement that had allowed 33 million metric tons of Ukrainian grain to reach markets, many of which are in developing countries in Africa. Russia pulled out of the agreement, citing continued restrictions on its agricultural exports as the reason. While the Kremlin looks to Africa for allies in its standoff with the West, several African countries, including key importer Egypt, which is experiencing an acute food crisis, have lashed out angrily at Russia. It was described as a stab in the back by Kenya's top diplomat when Russia pulled out of the deal. According to a government transcript, al-Sisi said, "I emphasize the importance of finding urgent solutions to provide food and fertilizers at prices that help Africa overcome this crisis. I hope that we can come to an agreement on a grain export agreement that will satisfy the needs and concerns of all parties and put an end to the spiraling cost of grains." Egypt imports more grain than any other country, and roughly 80% of that comes from Russia and Ukraine. Russian media showed Putin waiting for al-Sisi to arrive at a bilateral meeting on Thursday. Egypt had previously stated its disagreement with Russia's withdrawal from the deal and promised to continue buying Ukrainian grain through European intermediaries. On Thursday, Putin announced that, as part of a humanitarian initiative, he would provide free grain to 6 African countries. Burkina Faso, Zimbabwe, Mali, Somalia, the Central African Republic, and Eritrea were not included. Except for Somalia, which is in the midst of a humanitarian crisis, all of these countries are considered Russian allies. Putin's efforts to appease African leaders who have called for peace talks to end the war in Ukraine were also made on Friday. A peace plan presented by world leaders last month, led by South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa, was met with a lukewarm response from him. Denis Sassou Nguesso, president of Congo-Brazzaville, warned Friday that peace talks must not be underestimated in a plenary session. Putin said during Friday's plenary session on the last day of the summit, "We treat your initiatives with respect and are considering them closely." He continued, "This is an acute problem, and we're not evading consideration of it in our discussions regarding the crisis in Ukraine." On Friday, Putin will reportedly have dinner with African leaders and discuss the conflict in Ukraine. Leaders in Africa have little sway with the Kremlin to prevent the conflict that has driven up food and fuel prices, hurting their economies disproportionately. On Friday, some people voiced their support for Russia's armed forces. Putin praised Ibrahim Traoré, the interim leader of Burkina Faso who led a coup last year, for using the words, "fatherland or death," at the end of a speech. In 2022, the United Nations brokered a grain deal that cleared the way for grain to be transported from Ukrainian ports through the Black Sea and on to global markets. Russia has been bombing Ukrainian ports and grain infrastructure in Odessa and other cities near the Black Sea and Danube since it pulled out of the deal. Russia claimed on Friday that it had shot down several Ukrainian silos near cities in the Rostov region, which is located along the Black Sea. Rostov officials reported at least 15 injuries after rocket debris landed near a cafe in the city of Taganrog.